The sound of her steady breathing next to him in the dark made Marcus' heart pound. How did he end up here, sharing a bed with Victoria Hayes, the tough, strict CEO who had made his work life feel awful for the past 2 years? As the blizzard howled outside their cabin window, he stared at the ceiling, remembering his daughter's words that morning. "Dad, sometimes the universe puts people together for a reason." If only Emma could see him now, stuck in this impossible situation with the last person he ever expected to understand his struggles as a single dad. Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional stories that will tug at your heartstrings. Your support means everything, and I promise this journey of unexpected connection is one you won't want to miss. Marcus Parker had always been defined by 2 things: his strong love for his daughter and his never-give-up work ethic. At 34, he had learned how to balance being both mom and dad to his 8-year-old daughter, Emma, while moving up at Hayes Innovations. The company had saved him after his wife, Melissa, died 3 years ago, giving him the steady money and stability he badly needed to build a new normal life for himself and Emma. Every morning, he woke up before sunrise, and the empty feeling from Melissa being gone was still strong in the quiet house. He made Emma's lunch with the same careful touch his wife once had, writing little notes with hearts and jokes that he tucked between her sandwich and apple slices. He laid out her clothes, checked her homework one last time, and then gently woke her with a kiss on her forehead and their special morning greeting, "Rise and shine, my brave girl." These quiet moments were precious to him. The sleepy smile Emma gave him looked so much like her mother's that sometimes it actually hurt to see it. The way she wrapped her small arms around his neck and whispered, "Morning, Daddy," before launching into stories about her dreams or questions about the day ahead. In these moments, Marcus felt both the heavy weight of being a single parent and the amazing joy of being Emma's whole world. Victoria Hayes had taken over the tech company from her father 2 years ago, sweeping in like a winter storm. At 36, she had turned the once friendly workplace culture into a harsh, super-efficient machine. The employees called her the Ice Queen behind her back, because no one would ever dare say it to her face. Her reputation for needing perfection and not showing feelings followed her everywhere. She wore power like it was part of her, with sharp suits in steel gray and midnight blue, heels that added extra inches to her already tall height, and a constant cool, judging look that made even top executives nervous. In meetings, she had a habit of tapping one polished finger against her tablet while others spoke, like she was counting the seconds until they stopped wasting her time. The company's profits had shot up under her leadership, but so had employees quitting. To Marcus, Victoria stood for everything he hated about corporate America. Her constant demands for late nights and weekend work seemed made on purpose to punish people with families. The single parents on staff had dropped until only he was left, and he suspected it was only a matter of time before he would be forced to choose between his job and his daughter. Their talks had always been strictly professional and had become more and more tense. Victoria seemed to have a special sense for calling meetings right when Marcus was about to leave for the day, or asking for hard reports due Monday morning that forced him to work all weekend. He had started to wonder if she was picking on him on purpose, though he couldn't imagine why. His work was excellent, and his behavior was always respectful, even if not warm. "Parker, I need you in Aspen for the Nordstrom pitch," Victoria announced on Monday morning, dropping a folder on his desk without even looking up from her phone. "We leave Thursday morning. Back Friday night." Marcus felt his stomach sink. "This Thursday." "But Ms. Hayes, I can't possibly." "Can't isn't a word we use at Hayes Innovations." She cut him off, finally meeting his eyes with that steel blue stare that allowed no argument. "This account could double our Q1 projections. I need my best numbers person there." The compliment, if it even was one, surprised him. Victoria Hayes didn't give praise easily, or really at all. But the timing couldn't have been worse. "I understand the importance," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice calm. "But my daughter has her winter concert Thursday evening. I'm the only family she has, and I promised her I'd be there." Something flashed across Victoria's face so fast he almost missed it. Was it irritation? Disappointment? Whatever it was, it disappeared behind her professional mask. "The company jet leaves at 7 a.m. sharp. We'll be back by Friday evening." She turned to leave, then stopped. And Parker, bring your A-game. Nordstrom doesn't suffer fools. Marcus watched her walk away, her designer heels clicking with purpose across the hardwood floor. How could he tell Emma he would miss her solo? The thought of her small face falling with disappointment made his chest hurt. He spent the rest of the day in a fog of anger and giving up, doing his tasks like a robot while practicing how he would break the news to Emma. By the time he picked her up from after-school care, he still hadn't found the right words. Emma bounced into the car with her usual excitement, her curly hair slipping out of its ponytail, her backpack hugged to her chest. "Dad, guess what? Ms. Winters said I have the best voice in the whole class, and I get to sing the first verse of Winter Wonderland all by myself." Her excitement was clear, her eyes shining with pride. Marcus forced a smile, reaching over to tuck a loose curl behind her ear. "That's amazing, princess. I always knew you were a star. You're still coming, right? You promised you'd sit in the front row so I could see you." Marcus held the steering wheel tighter. "Let's talk about that when we get home, okay? How about pizza for dinner?" The distraction worked for a little while, but as they sat at their kitchen table with half-eaten slices between them, Marcus knew he couldn't wait anymore. "Emma, sweetheart, I need to tell you something about Thursday." She looked up, pizza halfway to her mouth, and something in his face must have told her, because her smile faded right away. "You're not coming to my concert, are you?" The directness of her question, the immediate understanding in her eyes, broke his heart. She was too young to be so used to disappointment. "I have to go on a business trip with my boss," he explained, reaching for her hand across the table. "It's really important, and I tried to get out of it, but it's okay, Dad." Emma's voice was small, but steady. "I know your job is important." "Not as important as you," Marcus insisted, moving to kneel beside her chair. "Never as important as you. I'll have Mrs. Rodriguez record every second, and we'll watch it together as soon as I get back." Emma nodded, but the light had gone out of her eyes. "Will you at least try to make it back in time?" "I promise I'll do everything I can," he said, even though he already knew it was a promise he probably couldn't keep. That evening, as he tucked Emma into bed, he struggled to find the right words to comfort her. "Princess, I'm so sorry about the concert," he began, smoothing her wild curls away from her forehead, curls so much like her mother's that sometimes it took his breath away. Emma looked up at him with those knowing eyes that always seemed too wise for her 8 years. "It's okay, Daddy. I know your job is important." The giving up in her voice hurt more than anger would have. "Just for one night, sweetheart. I have to go to Aspen with my boss for an important meeting. But I'll be thinking of you the whole time." "But my concert." Her lower lip shook a little. "I know. I'm so sorry. I'll have Mrs. Rodriguez record every second, and we'll watch it together as soon as I get back. I promise." Emma was quiet for a long moment, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling. "Is your boss the lady in the picture from the company party? The pretty one who never smiles?" Marcus couldn't help but laugh softly. "That's her. Ms. Hayes." "She looks sad," Emma said simply. "Sad? No, honey. She's just serious. Very focused on work." Emma shrugged, with the kind of childhood wisdom adults often miss. "Maybe she doesn't have anyone to go to concerts for." Her words stayed in Marcus' mind as he packed Wednesday night, echoing in his head as he kissed Emma goodbye early Thursday morning while she still slept, her small hand holding his without thinking as he whispered that he loved her. Mrs. Rodriguez, their elderly neighbor who had become like a grandma to Emma after Melissa died, patted his arm in a comforting way. "Don't worry, Marcus. I'll take good care of her. And I'll record every moment of that concert." "Thank you," he said, his throat tight. "I left the number of the hotel, and my cell will be on all day. If she needs anything, go," Mrs. Rodriguez said gently. "Before you wake her. It's harder if you have to see her cry." The drive to the private airfield was quiet. Marcus practiced what he would say to Victoria. Part of him wanted to confront her and demand why this meeting couldn't have been planned for any other day. But he knew it would ruin his career. Single parent or not, Hayes Innovations had been good to him, and jobs with that kind of salary and benefits weren't easy to find. Victoria was already on the sleek company jet when he arrived, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage. She barely looked up from her tablet as he put away his overnight bag. "Coffee is fresh," she said as a greeting. "We'll use the flight to finalize our presentation strategy." The flight to Aspen was quiet and tense. Victoria buried herself in prep materials, barely noticing Marcus, except to test him on numbers or challenge his predictions. He answered like a machine, his mind still in Emma's bedroom, imagining her waking up and finding him gone. "Parker, are you with me?" Victoria's sharp voice snapped through his thoughts. "I asked about the 5-year growth projection for the Western market." "Sorry, Ms. Hayes." He quickly pulled up the right spreadsheet. "The Western market is projected at 12.3% annual growth, assuming the Nordstrom partnership goes through and we can use their retail presence." She studied him for a moment, her face unreadable. "You seem distracted." "I apologize. It won't affect my performance." "See that it doesn't." She went back to her tablet, but not before adding, "This deal is too important for personal distractions." Marcus swallowed the comeback that rose in his throat. His personal distraction had a name, a face, and a solo in the winter concert that he would miss because Victoria Hayes couldn't reschedule a meeting. Instead, he focused on the spreadsheets, pushing his anger into careful preparation. The Nordstrom executives met them at a luxury resort tucked into the mountains. The meeting went surprisingly well, with Victoria showing a charm Marcus didn't know she had. He found himself watching her differently as she skillfully guided the conversation, noticing how she quietly pointed out his work at exactly the right moments. "Your projections were flawless," she said softly as they left the conference room, "the deal almost guaranteed. We make a good team, Parker." Before he could answer, her phone rang. The resort manager was calling with apologies. A huge snowstorm was coming in faster than expected. Roads were already closing, and their pilot had been forced to move the jet to Denver. "We're stuck here." Marcus couldn't hide the panic in his voice. "For how long?" "At least until tomorrow," the manager explained. "The good news is we have one cabin still available. Many guests left earlier when the warning came through." Victoria handled the new plan with her usual efficiency, securing the cabin and arranging for supplies to be delivered before the worst of the storm arrived. Marcus followed her in numb silence, counting the hours until Emma's concert and already knowing he would miss it completely. The cabin was simple but expensive, with one big room, a stone fireplace, a kitchenette, and one king-sized bed. Marcus stood in the doorway, staring at that single bed with rising horror. "I'll take the couch," he said quickly. Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Don't be ridiculous, Parker. That's barely a love seat. We're adults. The bed is big enough for both of us to keep a professional distance." Her matter-of-fact voice somehow made everything even more awkward. Marcus set his bag down, trying to imagine how he would ever explain this to Emma if she found out. Not that she would. Some stories were definitely not for 8-year-old ears. As the afternoon went on, the storm grew worse. Marcus stood at the window, watching the snow wipe out everything outside, feeling just as trapped by the situation as by the weather. At exactly 7 p.m., the time Emma's concert would be starting, he felt his phone buzz with a text from Mrs. Rodriguez. "She's about to go on. Wishes you were here." Something inside Marcus cracked. He turned away from Victoria, who was working at the small table, and tried to swallow the lump in his throat. He had never missed one important moment in Emma's life since her mother died. Not one. "Parker, is everything all right?" He hadn't heard Victoria walk up. When he turned, she was standing closer than she ever had outside a boardroom. Close enough that he could smell her expensive perfume and see the tiny flecks of darker blue in her eyes. "Fine," he managed. "It's just my daughter's concert is starting now." Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then, to his surprise, she sat on the edge of the bed and motioned for him to sit with her. "Tell me about her." The simple request, said without her usual sharp coldness, caught him off guard. Before he knew it, Marcus was showing Victoria photos of Emma on his phone, telling stories about her smart questions and determined spirit. "She looks like you," Victoria said, studying a photo of Emma on a swing, her face bright with joy. "She has your smile." "Everyone says she looks like her mother," Marcus replied, surprised. Victoria shook her head. "The coloring, maybe. But that's your smile. The real one you never show at work." The comment was so unexpected and so personal that Marcus didn't know what to say. Victoria seemed surprised by her own words too, quickly standing and going back to her work, but something had changed between them. As the evening went on and the storm screamed outside, the professional wall they had kept up began to fall apart. Over the simple meal the resort provided, Victoria asked more about Emma. And how Marcus managed being a single parent. "It must be hard," she said, swirling the wine in her glass. "The company demands a lot." "It is," Marcus admitted, deciding the truth was his only choice now. "Especially since you took over." He expected her to snap at him, but instead she looked down at her plate. "My father believed in work-life balance. I know I moved away from that." "Why?" The question came out before he could stop it. Victoria stayed quiet so long Marcus thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost its boardroom power. "My father was loved by his employees. When I took over after he died, the board made it clear they doubted a woman could keep his success. I felt I had to be twice as demanding, twice as perfect to prove them wrong." She met his eyes. "I never thought about the human cost of that." As the night got later and the wine bottle emptied, Victoria showed more of herself than Marcus ever expected to see. She talked about growing up in the shadow of Hayes Innovations, about her father's expectations, about relationships that failed because she placed her career above everything else. "The truth is, Parker," she said as they finally got ready for bed, the awkwardness of their situation feeling smaller after their close conversation, "I envy you. Even with everything, you've built something real with Emma, something that matters." In the dark, lying next to his boss with a careful foot of space between them, Marcus shared the fear that had followed him since his wife died. "I'm terrified of failing her," he whispered, "of not being enough." Victoria's hand found his across the gap. A short, warm squeeze. "From everything you've told me tonight, you're more than enough for her." Marcus woke to pale winter sunlight and realized that sometime during the night, the careful distance between them had disappeared. Victoria was curled against his side, her head on his shoulder, one hand spread across his chest. Her sleeping face looked completely different. The sharp, focused lines had softened. The constant crease between her eyebrows was gone. He should have moved. He should have carefully slipped away before she woke up. Instead, he found himself watching her. Marcus woke to find Victoria curled against him, her usual sharp edges softened in sleep. When her eyes slowly opened, there was a moment of perfect stillness before real life rushed back in. "I apologize," she said quickly, sitting up and smoothing her hair. "That was inappropriate." "No need to apologize," Marcus said softly. "We were just staying warm." A faint smile touched her lips before she hid behind her professional mask again. But the mask didn't fit quite as perfectly as it did before. The storm had ended, leaving the world changed into clean, shining white. Their pilot called to confirm he could pick them up by noon. As they packed quietly, Marcus wondered if everything would go back to normal when they returned to the city, if the connection they found would be buried under spreadsheets and corporate ranks. On the flight home, Victoria worked quietly beside him. But something was different. Sometimes their eyes met, and he caught a glimpse of the woman from the cabin before she looked away. As they got ready to land, she finally broke the silence. "Parker, Marcus, I've been thinking about what you said about Emma's concert." He nodded, the disappointment still sharp. "I'd like to make it up to her. To both of you." Victoria hesitated, unusually unsure. Hayes Innovations is sponsoring the Children's Symphony next weekend. I have box seats. Maybe you and Emma would come with me. The invitation hung between them, meaning much more than just a simple outing. I think she'd like that, Marcus said. I think we both would. When they said goodbye at the airport, Victoria surprised him by lightly touching his arm. Thank you, she said simply, for sharing your story with me, for helping me see what I've been missing. Marcus got home to find Emma waiting, her face brightening the second he came in. He lifted her into his arms, breathing in the smell of her shampoo and feeling the solid, real weight of her small body against his chest. I missed you so much, Daddy. Did you get stuck in the snow? Mrs. Rodriguez showed me on the weather map. I did, Princess, but I'm home now. He set her down and kneeled to her height. And I have a surprise. My boss, Ms. Hayes, invited us to the symphony next weekend. Would you like to go? Emma's eyes went wide. The lady who never smiles? She wants to meet me? Marcus laughed. She does. And between you and me, she does smile sometimes, when no one's looking. That night, as he tucked Emma into bed, she asked the question he had been expecting. Did something happen in the snow? Daddy, you look different. Marcus thought about the night in the cabin, about Victoria's hand finding his in the dark, about the walls coming down between them. Sometimes, people surprise you. Sometimes they're not who you thought they were at all. Emma nodded seriously, like she was much older. Like in my books. The Ice Queen always melts in the end. In the months that followed, Hayes Innovations changed. Victoria put family-friendly policies in place that became the talk of the industry. Employee happiness rose along with profits, proving that kindness and success could both exist together. For Marcus and Emma, the changes were even bigger. Victoria became a steady part of their lives. Sunday brunches, movie nights, and holidays filled with new laughter. Emma loved her, and Marcus found himself falling for the woman behind the CEO mask. 1 year after the snowstorm, Marcus and Victoria stood in the same cabin, this time by choice. I was so cold before you and Emma, Victoria admitted, her eyes reflecting the firelight. I didn't realize how much I had shut myself off. That evening, Victoria pulled out a small velvet box. I love you both. I'm not asking to replace Melissa, but I'm asking if you'll let me be part of your family officially. Emma already knows, she added quickly. I asked for her permission last week. She said yes, and then made me promise we could get a puppy. 6 months later, at their wedding, Victoria knelt in front of Emma. Today, I'm not just marrying your dad. I'm promising to be your family, too. As they shared their vows under the spring sky, Marcus thought about how completely his life had changed. Victoria had come into his life as a problem, and now she stood in front of him as his partner, his love, and a mother to his daughter. Sometimes the universe knows exactly what it's doing when it traps two people in a snowstorm with only one bed between them. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more emotional journeys that remind us how unexpected connections can transform our lives.